Your baby locks eyes with you from across the room and doesn't look away, not for seconds, but for a long, unblinking stretch of time that feels almost too intentional to be accidental. It's not the glazed look of tiredness. It's something else entirely, something focused and deliberate that makes you feel genuinely, almost uncomfortably seen. Most parents laugh it off or wave a hand in front of the baby's face or turn to someone nearby and say, "They're doing that staring thing again." But that staring thing, that long, still, penetrating gaze, is one of the most psychologically rich behaviors an infant produces in their entire first year of life. And understanding what it actually means will change the way you look back at your baby for the rest of their childhood. The first thing you need to know is that a baby's stare is never empty. There is no such thing as a blank infant gaze, even when it looks that way from the outside. From the very first days of life, the infant visual system is running a continuous high-speed scanning operation, cataloging faces, shapes, contrasts, and movements with startling efficiency. The human face, in particular, is the single most compelling visual object the infant brain is biologically programmed to seek, find, and hold. Researchers have found that newborns as young as 9 minutes old will track a face-like pattern over a non-face pattern, not because they learned to, but because the brain arrived pre-wired for exactly this. And this is where it becomes interesting. Because what your baby is doing when they stare at you is not passive observation. It is active, urgent, neurologically driven data collection. In those first weeks and months, your face is quite literally your baby's entire curriculum, the primary source from which they are learning how the world works and what it feels like to be in it. Every expression you make, every micro shift in your eyes, every small tension around your mouth, your baby is reading all of it, cataloging it, and filing it into a rapidly growing emotional database. This process has a name in developmental science. It's called social referencing, and it is one of the foundational mechanisms through which infants learn to understand and navigate their emotional world. When your baby stares at you before they reach for a new toy, or before they react to a loud sound, or before they respond to a stranger, they are checking you first. They are asking you, without any words, the most important question an infant can ask. Is this safe? Is this okay? And how should I feel about this right now? And your face, your expression, your body language in that moment becomes the answer, delivered instantly and absorbed completely before you've said a single word. Something subtle is happening here. Your baby is not just looking at you, they are using you as an emotional compass, a living reference point for how to interpret everything around them. This is why babies stare most intensely at the people they feel most attached to, because the attachment relationship is the library, and the stare is how they read it. But there's a layer to the stare that goes beyond information gathering, and this is the part that most parenting content never quite reaches. When your baby stares at you for a long, unbroken stretch, really holds that gaze, they are also doing something that has no parallel anywhere else in human development. They are practicing the experience of being in connection, learning what it feels like to be with another person, to hold a shared moment, to exist in mutual awareness with someone else. Developmental psychologists call this proto-conversation, and it is the earliest form of what will eventually become every meaningful human relationship your child will ever have. The stare is not one-directional. It is an invitation, and babies are exquisitely sensitive to whether or not that invitation is accepted. When you hold your baby's gaze back, when you meet the stare with presence instead of distraction, something measurable happens in both of your nervous systems simultaneously. Research has shown that sustained mutual gaze between a caregiver and infant causes a genuine physiological synchrony. Heart rates align, cortisol levels regulate, and the baby's stress response actively calms. This means that your baby staring at you is not a one-way street. It is a biological exchange, and your response to it has real, measurable effects on your baby's developing physiology.
At first, this seems small, a baby staring at your face during a feeding or a diaper change, but inside that stare, a nervous system is literally being shaped. The quality of early eye contact between a caregiver and infant has been directly linked to the development of secure attachment, emotional regulation, and even language acquisition later in life. Which means that every time you look back, every time you hold that gaze instead of glancing at your phone, you are building something in your baby's brain that no app, no toy, and no enrichment program can replicate. Now, not all stares are the same, and this is where it gets genuinely nuanced in ways worth understanding carefully.
There is the engaged stare. Eyes bright, body leaning slightly forward, expression alive with curiosity. And this is the one most parents recognize and feel most comfortable with. There is the processing stare. Eyes slightly unfocused, expression still and interior, as though the baby has gone somewhere inside themselves, while their eyes remain open and pointing outward. And there is the startled stare. Wide eyes, body momentarily frozen, expression hovering between fascination and alarm, which usually follows something unexpected in the environment. Learning to read which stare you're looking at changes everything about how you respond, and the right response to each one is genuinely different. The engaged stare is an invitation to interact, to talk, to mirror, to make a face back, to join whatever small universe your baby has just opened up between you. The processing stare, on the other hand, is a request for something very different, for stillness, for low pressure, for a patient presence that doesn't demand anything in return.
Interrupting a processing stare with stimulation is one of the most common and most understandable mistakes caregivers make, because silence and stillness feel like something that needs to be fixed. But if you ever notice the stare changing, becoming persistently fixed without responsiveness, without any return of eye contact when you engage, without any shift in expression, that is worth raising with a pediatrician. Not because it certainly means something is wrong, but because early eye contact patterns are one of the most informative early windows into neurological development, and they deserve respectful attention.
Here is something that tends to stop parents in their tracks when they first hear it. Your baby stares at you most intensely right before a developmental leap. In the days before a new skill emerges, before a first roll, a first reach, a first real social smile, the brain ramps up its observation of the caregiver, as if downloading a final set of instructions. Parents often report that their baby seemed different in the days before a milestone, more serious, more watchful, more given to long, quiet stares, and they were right to notice. The stare in those moments is the brain in its final preparation phase, gathering the last pieces of relational and environmental data it needs before reorganizing itself at a higher level. And after the leap, the stare often changes, becomes lighter, more playful, more interactive, because the brain has arrived somewhere new and is beginning to explore from that new place. What babies are doing when they stare, in almost every context, is loving you in the only language they currently have, and that language is attention itself.
Attention for a pre-verbal infant is not a byproduct of love. It is the love, offered completely and without reservation, in the only form available to a person who has not yet learned to speak. This is why being stared at by your baby, really stared at, held in that unblinking, total gaze, can feel so profound that it sometimes brings parents to tears without quite knowing why. You are not imagining the weight of that gaze. It is real, it is directed, and it carries more meaning than most adult interactions will ever approach. So the next time your baby locks eyes with you and simply refuses to look away, instead of laughing it off or looking away yourself, try holding it, really holding it, for just a moment longer than feels comfortable. Because in that small, ordinary, extraordinary moment, In the space between your eyes and theirs, something is being built that will quietly shape who your child becomes and who you become to each other for the rest of your lives together. When your baby stares at you and you look back, really look back, have you ever wondered what they see?